Hey everyone, JP here with Centered Golf, and for this week's video, I'm going to be going through the wedge matrix in detail. So I'm going to show you, number one, why you want to do it, the benefits, how it helps your game, how it'll lower your scores, and also the how. That's very important, is to how to do it as effectively and efficiently as possible to make sure you're making the most of your time and doing it right. And then also go over a few technique tips sprinkled in throughout it, but I try to stay away from technique just because it's so personalized to everyone's game. So there are some universal tips that I put in there as well. And then last, I'll also go over when to do it, how often, and just when to do it to keep it sharp, pretty much. Number one is why. So the benefits. It's pretty obvious now. All of the strokes gained analysis and all the stats coming in is common sense. The closer you are to the hole, the closer you will get to the hole, no matter what your handicap is. If you're like me at one point, I know a lot of golfers that are mid to high handicap, you have a choice to lay up sometimes. If your 3-wood gets you within 40, 50 yards of the green, you might think, yeah, but that sort of leaves me in no man's land. I would rather lay up with my 4-iron or 3 or whatever hybrid and be 100 yards away. That way I can do my full swing with my gap wedge, pitching wedge, whatever it is that I feel more confident with. Well, that's only because you don't have a confident swing and the confident numbers down with those 40, 50, 60-yard shots. So this helps you get confident with those numbers by basically giving you something that you can use. So this was the last one I did a while ago, if you can see. This is more of like my knockdown shot feel. But if I'm in those distances away, you can see pretty much every 5 yards apart, I have a swing that I can go to confidently and take the guesswork out. That allows me to swing more freely over the ball. I'll go over this in detail in the future, but you can see it's a lot easier when you have these numbers to work with. I'll also go over a lot of details of the software. So some launch monitors have a wedge matrix in, some software systems do, some gameplay ones, but the software I use, it's actually free, and I feel it is incredible how many other benefits it has. So I'm going to go through that process as well, and also show you how to sort of digest the data and put it together so you could recognize patterns and tendencies to make the most improvements as well. So the one tip I have as far as the process goes before you get started, if you want to go somewhere and do this at a place with a simulator, is make sure you bring a pen and paper and make notes with all the swings and all the clubs. At the end, you'll see a lot of data to get detailed and look at, but numbers only show you so much. And you might have two clubs that, two different swings that overlap in the same distance. If you have the notes to reflect on, this club just felt confident and just made sense, and this one I just couldn't ever feel right over. It helps you narrow down. And I mean, at the end, it's just really hard to remember if you're making mental notes the whole time. So pen and paper, whenever you do this, make notes as you go through the process. That'll help you retain more information and get more out of it. So with that being said, I'll get straight into the tutorial and walk through the wedge matrix process. Enjoy. All right, so for starters, you're going to want to make sure you got some clean grooves on all your wedges. So make sure you go through, give them a scrub, no debris, no dust, nothing on there. That'll give you accurate spin numbers and accurate distances and as fine-tuned as possible. Second thing is your balls. You're going to want to make sure you use the same ball that you use on the course. So same thing, you want to make sure that these numbers are going to be as accurately represented as you get when you're playing. So getting the numbers and testing distances and everything with the real ball that you use obviously makes sense. Most importantly, you're going to want to determine your own personal sort of swing feel, swing style. So in order to do this, you got to have 3 different swings. I mean, 2 or 3 different swings really with every wedge. And it depends on your sort of personality type. Again, back to mental golf type. People learn and feel different ways. They think different ways. They feel different ways. So knowing what works best for you will save a lot of time than all the trial and error or whatnot that most golfers, myself included, went through forever. If you're a very strong personality trait, one way or the other, you'll know right away. Most people like to just think or just feel half shot and just do a half shot. And other people are more specific on feeling where their hands go. swings go at 9 o'clock. So there's a clock system that's very popular, and there's just the swing thought that's also very popular. Determine which one works best for you, but in general, as long as you have 3 different swing types, that'll give you an accurate run through and different options all the way through your wedges to get as many distances locked in as you can. Personally, I'm more just the thinking. I just think and do it. It's the more mechanical and specific I get, the more tense I get, and it doesn't let me produce my best results. So definitely thinking is for me. My specific swing thoughts that I have. My first one is just a max chip. So I just max stance, my chip stance, and I just I just think max chip. I also have different variations of the half chip and quarter chip to really get into fine details of, inside 30 yards or inside 40 yards. But for now, we're just doing the more distance wedges from like the 40 or whatever's specific for you. So max chip is where I always start with this drill. So I got my max chip is 1. That's just my chipping stance and then my max feel. And then my next one up would be a half swing. So I just think half swing. And then the next one up is 3/4 swing. So exact same setup as the half swing, setting up like a normal swing on these. And then it's just 3/4 swing. So those 3 are basically all I need with my 4 wedges right now. I've got my 60, 54, 50, and my pitching wedge. I think it's about 46. So based on those 3 swing thoughts, I'll have all the options I need between those 4 clubs. And there's also variations you can do. Obviously, having wedges, having different shots, those are all stock. Half shot, and also having a sort of a knockdown is very beneficial. I personally like that sort of a half shot knockdown, so I'm just thinking knockdown, half shot. That'll be a different distance, different trajectory. So you can throw all sorts of variations into these. There is a little bit of trial and error to figure out what works best for you, but that is step number 1. Determine your different swings and the best way to feel and, I guess, think or feel your way through them. That's important. So once you have that dialed in, I'll just run through the matrix process. So the one thing I liked about SkyTrack was a lot of the great things I liked about the SkyTrack I had, but they had this wedge matrix already in there, which was amazing. I wouldn't have made the incredible gains I made back then if it wasn't for their bag mapping and their matrix plan already in there. It was amazing. A lot of munch monitors are coming out with stuff like this nowadays, so it's very beneficial, but most of them don't have it in their system yet. Some software has it in there. I know the GS Pro has bag mapping, but not the wedge matrix stuff yet. So developing my process is, I think, a little more beneficial, because the one thing I didn't like about the SkyTrack was that it was just sort of in the wrong order. It had lob wedge, sand wedge, gap wedge, pitching wedge, but it went through one club at a time. So you do the lob wedge chip, and a lob wedge half, and a lob wedge 3/4. I find it more beneficial to just go through one swing feel at a time. So whatever it is right now, I'll start max chip. I'll just do max chip with the 60, jump around 50, sand wedge, pitching wedge. That way I'm staying consistent with this swing tempo with every club. That way I know it's not slight changes going on each one. I don't know if I'm explaining that properly, but I hope you get the idea. Same swing consistently, more consistent results. So I'll just do a few max chips to start here. So the more swings you can do, obviously the more accurate the averages will be. For the sake of time in this video, I just did 6 swings per set, and I just deleted the one anomaly to get a good average. So another couple interesting pointers that I've learned from all the ones that I've done before. I don't like to go in the exact order: lob wedge, sand wedge, gap wedge, pitching wedge, because you just sort of subconsciously see where they're going and just say, oh, this club is a little bit farther, I should be doing better, and your swing just subconsciously changes to align with the club you're using. That's why I sort of like to randomize it and go from lob to gap to sand to pitch, or just absolute random order every time. And I also don't like to look at numbers a lot. I try to ignore the numbers as best I can. All I'm doing is hitting, looking, make sure it's on a line, and as soon as it lands, I'm like, all right, cool, look down, line up my next shot, and just try to dial it in. It's really weird. There's a sense of ego in this where you always see like, oh, if you see one went like a, whatever that last one was, if one went like 54, I get that in my head, and all of a sudden I see one go 46, and I'm like, nah, I can go 40, I can go 53 or whatever. Then you just start swinging harder to get that max number. So to detach yourself from the numbers in the middle of it and just stay focused on the exact same feel, rhythm, tempo on every stage you're in, I feel like that will produce the most accurate, realistic feedback that you would get when you're on the course. So randomize the clubs, try to ignore the numbers, and then that's just my personal suggestion when you're doing this. So you notice I went from my lob, now I switched to my gap, so I'm going to do the same thing. So in a sense, this could be considered a type of block practice as far as the routine goes, but you don't want to be having a ton of mechanical thoughts. You want to be sort of thinking the same lines that you would on a course, looking at your target, taking your time to make sure you produce the most accurate and consistent solid strikes each time. I did mention a few technique tips. I try to stay away from technique tips because it's just so personalized with everyone's different type. But I would suggest ball in the middle of the stance all the time. There's easy sort of distance adjustments that you can do if it's only a couple yards one way or another. If you're that fine-tuned, it's just adjusting the ball slightly forward, slightly back. That changes the loft of the club and everything. So starting at the middle is always ideal. And another technique tip is to always be gripping the max right now. So when you're doing this, you get the max length of the club. Great distance adjustment is just to choke down a little bit. Gives you a couple yards shorter with the exact same swing feel. So if you are sort of in between, I hate the phrase in between, but you got a little adjustment to shorten it just a few yards, which is nice. So middle of the stance, just thinking max chip stuff. A great swing thought, especially for beginners, is to always think to accelerate through the ball. This helps everything fire in proper time and getting the proper motion more consistent at the moment of impact. All right, so last up with this is going to be the pitching wedge. Same exact thought, same exact feel, same rhythm, same tempo. Trying to get the exact same max chip distance for each one. So I got it selected. Yep. All right, good to go. You might notice me double and triple checking the club selection quite often. That's because when it is time to upload in the software and to dial it all in, you'll find it makes life a lot easier if it was all loaded correctly. So this is a great example of why the distance wedges is so beneficial. My max swing with my 60 degree is about 80-90 yards. And you can see my max chip thought feel is about 80 to 90 yards. And the dispersion circle in this is so much tighter, so much more straight, because doing this controlled swing is so much easier than doing a full swing with the lob wedge. Short swing, less to go wrong, easier to control, more consistent. That's where these shots really come into play. One important factor to consider with that is that the shorter swing will roll out a bit more since the swing speed is lower, the spin is lower, the descent angle is lower, so there's full swing will be less roll, while the slower swing will roll out more. So you got to sort of recognize those tendencies to see when each shot will work. For now, that wraps up this session of the max chip. So all I will do is pull up that form up there so you can see this is from GS Pro. I'm going to look at the history of this session and then export the data. So first thing is to look at that last set pitching wedge. You see I have 6 swings on there. I'm going to find whatever one was sort of the biggest miss hit or the anomaly. In this case, just the one with the lowest spin is also the shortest distance and the most side spin. So definitely an oddball. I'm going to get rid of that and give me the 5 best. So now I've got 20 shots total. That's 5 of each. And that's all I need to export. So that's where selecting it while you're playing makes it a lot easier. It's a lot quicker than going here and having to double check everything. But up there, export, that easy. That'll save to my other monitor. So I'll just move over to that one. And then on that monitor, you'll see that there. So I just rename it, easier to find. And then I'll upload it onto the Golf Shot Analytics software. So this software is amazing. I'm going to have to do another video on it in itself just because there's so much that I haven't even scratched the surface on. But for now, this is how easy this is. You just import that last session. Voila. You can select all the readings, pretty standard. Give it the name, make it easy to find. And then you could even adjust rate the quality of the session. I'll just say this one was 4 stars. And you could even select what ball you used. This is great for comparing different balls in the future. Like I said, tons of stuff you could do on here. Can't wait to explore more. But for this, just go up. There you go. Imported 20. And then I go to the most recent. Boom. And there they are. So first thing you see is the gaps there on the candlesticks. And you can sort of see the long candlesticks, a little more inconsistent shots. No bueno. But great visual to look at the max chip. And then the numbers up top. I'll go over all these at the end of the video. But it's literally that easy. Simply input it. And then one more thing, obviously looking at numbers is great, but the coolest thing about this, you go down to trajectories and voila, you get that cool chart on the right. I'm not sure why this graph comes out incorrectly. I did see on the Golf Shot Analytics website they mentioned some GS Pros data might come through funny, so I think that's why that looks weird. So I just ignore the apex height on these. But that graphics, obviously on the right, that's where you see your left and right dispersions. That is pretty solid. So from here, it's uploaded. Now I can move on to my next swing feel in the matrix. All right, so now I got the max chip done. I'm going to work up to my half swings now. So go through the same process, still randomizing the club order, so it's different, but I'm just going to have the same feel, the same thought really. That's what works best for me. Again, personalizing, but this time I'm just doing half swing. So technique-wise, my setup is a little bit different. This way I'm just setting up like a normal full swing stance, square the target here, ball still in the middle. So I like having the adjustability to move it forward or backwards, half a ball or a ball to change distance and trajectories here. So center is a great stock place to start. So center the stance. And then I'm just thinking half swing.
I see them fighting off the feeling just to find a little frequency and rotate with the seasons. And I don't need to know the reasons you believe, as long as you believe that there's a scenery beyond the ceiling.
All right, wrapping up here with the half swing. Ending on my 54. Again, just randomized. There's no real method to the madness. I just try to skip back and forth. Never go 2 in a row the same. It really tricks your brain. But you might notice me looking up after every shot. Say I'm not looking at the numbers and I look up at the data. I'm just looking at the impact more than anything, just to confirm that what I feel matches what really happened with the impact. I was just trying to work on my awareness a little bit more and more to develop that feel in detail. All right, last 6 swings, half swing with a 54. The entire process can take anywhere from 30 to 60 minutes, obviously depending on how many swings you take and how many distractions there are. But the data part, that only takes about 4 to 5 minutes regardless, so that's super easy. All right, so last up, we are going to do 3/4 swing. So again, I like to sort of do a little more random. I should have went max chip, 3/4, then half, just to go in different directions, but doesn't make that much of a difference. That's just getting a little too perfectionist. We can be flexible, right? All right. So now 3/4 swing with my 54.
I don't pretend to be rich, don't pretend to be broke. I don't pretend to be asleep, don't pretend to be woke. I don't pretend to be deep, don't pretend to be clean. I'm everything and everything that's in between.
And even if you have a mishit, that was very chunky, very clunky, I'm not going to try to say, all right, I'll get another one. I'm going to take 7 shots this time and delete the 2 worst. No, it's still 6 shots every time. That way you still have accurate representation of the best 5 out of 6 of every club. Because you want to know which ones aren't working, you know? Keep yourself honest.
I don't pretend to be cool, don't pretend to be young. I don't pretend to be smart, don't pretend to be dumb. I don't pretend to be hard, don't pretend to be first. And most of all, I don't pretend to be concerned.
Is that 6? Well, that was 7. Oops. Sort of cheated myself there. That one and the farthest one. So I'm not cherry picking the 2 shortest to try to pretend that it goes longer than it does. I just took my longest and my shortest out on this one. And that gives me a pretty good and solid average. Alright, I'm going to stick with that 3/4 swing while it is consistent with that last little set with the sandwich. The main reason why most golfers struggle with these distances is because they don't have specific swings that they can commit to. If you have any second guessing when you're standing over the ball about the club you selected or how hard you're swinging it, it's really hard to function at the best of your abilities. Once you're able to commit, that allows you to swing more freely, and that allows you to access your best skills more often. And that's essentially what this chart does here. So as you can see, I basically put my 3 swings next to each other. It's a lot easier than clicking back and forth through the software. So on the left you got my max chip feel, in the middle is my half swing, and on the right is my 3/4 swing. So I'll let you pause it real quick and do a quick analysis and see what patterns you could recognize. And I'm sure you noticed the 54, it's pretty nice how the colors are all consistent. I don't even do that. It just system did that for me in the software. But the 54 definitely seemed to be my most consistent club, without a doubt. Tightest dispersions, pretty good gapping, looks pretty strong. The half swing was definitely the one I struggled with the most. A lot of ranges with all the clubs there. But you can see a lot of overlaps as well. So whenever it's overlapping, that's where I said making notes, and you can sort of determine what swing felt better. Because dispersion circles might look great, but one of them might have been a consistent mishit, while the other one was a consistent sweet spot. So making those notes will help you allow you to choose the better club right off the bat. It's just better to limit the amount of options you have at a certain yardage, just because decision fatigue is a real thing. You want to minimize the amount of decisions you have out in the course. It just takes energy, and the less time you spend making those decisions, the more energy you can have on your process in general and committing to your shot. So I know there's a lot to take in, so sorry it's a little overwhelming at first, so I'll just explain it. Dispersion charts are great, but these numbers are also great to look at as well to see where the swings lined up. So on the very bottom is the max chip, the middle would be the half swing, and the top would be the 3/4 swing. So just start with the data from the far left. You see the clubs labeled, obviously. Next over is the shots. I like just to make sure I got 5 shots of each. And then the next is the carry distance. So this is the one I'm paying attention to most. Total distance isn't as important just because it's greatly dependent on uphill, downhill, the landing area, and also the responsiveness of the green that day. There's a lot of variables, but just recognizing the tendencies of each one to roll out. You'll notice the shorter swings roll out more than the longer swings, so knowing that sort of details definitely helps, but I'm not sticking too much to the total distance. The carry is more important. And then over next is the club speed. That's always nice to see, just to make sure my swings were consistent with each other. You can tell on the bottom the max swing, the club speeds were all solid until I got to that pitching wedge. It is a little bit longer than the other wedges, but it shouldn't have been 5 miles an hour faster. So I obviously put a little more on the gas on that one. So I should make sure that carry distance is considered to be closer to 80, 82, considered to 87. And then All the other ones look amazing. Ball speed, obviously good to look at. Vertical angle is nice to see. You always want to keep these, anywhere from 24 to 30 degrees. The general rule is half of whatever the loft is you're swinging. So mine look pretty solid right where I want to be. Apex, I need to delete that. Like I mentioned earlier, that it enters funny from GS Pro, so we can ignore the apex height. Attack angle is important to look at. 9-10 degrees down, that's pretty solid. I'm happy with all of my numbers there, except for the 3/4 swing with the pitching wedge. That seemed a little shallow, but no biggie. And then the backspin. That one is very important as well. You'll notice the tendencies. You'll see the lower swing speeds, the lower the spin, and the spin goes up as you go faster. And also as the loft is higher, the spin also goes up. So you could just keep an eye on those, making sure that they are moving accordingly. That is confirming that you're striking it properly and keeping your attack angle consistent and all that good stuff. So that wraps up the process tips. I hope you guys got a lot out of that. The important part is also how to use this and how often to fine tune it. The best tip I have is that to implement this in your pre-round routine. So every day our feels are a little bit different. Our half swing one day might be a lot different the next day. It depends on sleep, it depends on diet, if you just worked out, how much energy you used the day before. There's a lot of factors that go into it. So spend about 10 minutes. Just try to fit this into your pre-round routine. Just take 2 or 3 swings with your half swing, with your max chip, whatever your swing feels are, just to calibrate them, fine-tune them. If you got one at like 50 yards, if you got a swing that's 50 yards, find a target in the range is 50 yards. Take 2 or 3 swings. Make sure that your tempo on that day is accurate with the numbers you have. That way, you only got to do one club. If that tempo is accurate, then it should be accurate all throughout the rest of the wedges. So very important. Fine tune it pre-round routine. Second is how often to do it. Realistically, I'd say once every off season, just before the season starts, just to dial in your numbers before. Also, if you do any swing speed training, if you do any exercises and lifts routines, that bulks you up a little bit. That's why I did this pretty much, was I've just played a few simulated rounds and a few rounds in real life, and everything just was way out of whack. My swings were all going 10 to 15 yards farther than they should have, and just, realized because I'm just wrapping up a swing speed training process. That's wrapping up here on 8-9 weeks. And also I've been doing a lot of grip exercises. I'm gonna make a video on grip exercises because I swear grip strength is a grossly overlooked aspect in speed training. But I don't know which factor it was, because I did 2 things at the same time. I'm always juggling a lot of different things, but one of those made a big difference. So after exercising, after doing a lift regimen, after doing swing speed training, I suggest doing a wedge matrix to see if anything has changed. So you can not adjust your tempo. You just want to keep that same feel. If the numbers are different, you want to fine tune those numbers again. So that wraps it up. I hope you got a lot from this video. A lot more of these sort of educational tip game improvement videos will be in the making. So stay tuned. Follow, like, subscribe, whatever you got to do. Comment with any questions. Message me. Love getting feedback and trying to improve any way I can and help you improve your game as well. So thanks again for watching. JP Centered Golf. We'll see you on the next one.